talkers by private Sarah Sanchez, Alonso, and Maria Venezuelan. Acquisition of popular distinction in Venezuelan Spanish, a comparison study between children and adults.
Hello everyone, welcome to our talk. I'm Sarah Sanchez and I'm here presenting with Aveledo. This is joint work with Maria Piñato. So in our presentation, we are going to present some data on how children acquire copula use in Venezuelan Spanish. We are going to discuss the implications for copula acquisition. As many of you are familiar with, Spanish has two copulas, ser and estar, both of which are translated into English with the verb to be. So one of the questions that we are going to be answering in our talk is, how do we understand this distinction? The distinction between the copulas is actually very straightforward for native speakers, although it's difficult to identify a specific criteria that distinguish the two copulas, and it's even more challenging for native speakers, for learners of Spanish as a second language. However, there is a rule of thumb that learners follow, and this is what I'm going to present next. So the rule of thumb is that you use estar with temporary properties, and you use ser to describe permanent properties. So for example, let's say that I want to describe this apple here. I could say that the apple is dark green, and I would be indicating that the color of the apple, the green color, is a temporary property, maybe because the apple is not green, ripe. However, somebody may come to me and say, hey look, the apple is still green. And in that case, what the person is communicating is that the green color is actually a permanent property that applies to the apple, right? And is ready to be eaten. However, this very straightforward rule of temporary versus permanent distinction fails in many cases, and in copula uses that are very common in certain varieties of Spanish, such as, for example, Mexican Spanish. So, for example, if I want to describe the Sistine Chapel, I could use estar and say, the Sistine Chapel está beautiful. The beauty of the chapel is not going to change. It's a permanent property, but still I'm using estar. I could describe the width of the road, saying the road está wide, even though the width is not going to change. Okay, so having presented you the phenomenon, now I'm going to give you an overview of the talk. So first I'm going to present how do we understand this distinction then? What is the analysis that we are assuming during the rest of the talk? Then we'll be presenting previous work on copula use in children. We'll move on to hypotheses and predictions, which will be tested in two studies, and we'll end with summary and conclusions. Okay, so what is the difference between the copulas? The difference that the analysis I'm going to be presenting is joint work with Aveledo. And the difference between the copulas that we are assuming is that estar provides some additional information that ser doesn't have. This additional information is captured in terms of a presuppositional component. So estar presupposes that the assertive predication is contingent. This means that there are alternatives, there are contrasting alternative values for the predication. What does that mean? I'm going to give you an example now. So remember the example of the wide road? If I say the road is town wide, for some native speakers in some varieties, this may sound a little bit strange. It's kind of, they're not sure if it's an acceptable, it's something they wouldn't say. However, if you ask them, well, think about the following context. So the context is a journalist who is reporting on the Pan American Highway, and she studied in Buenos Aires, and she's now near Lima. She notices that the width of the road has changed, so the road is wider near Lima. In such a situation, then, native speakers agree that it's fine to use estar. So what is the context doing here? The context is contrasting the proposition, the road being wide near Lima, with contrasting alternative along, in this case, a specially defined parameter. So the alternatives in this case are parts of the Pan American Highway near Buenos Aires, in which which the road is not as wide as near Lima. So these are the alternatives. Okay, so assuming this analysis and this difference between SER and STAR, so remember STAR provides some additional information captured in terms of this contingency presupposition. The question that we are going to explore in the rest of the talk is, what is the use of the copulas in children? What do we see? And I'm going to present to you the previous findings. There are very few studies on copula use, but there are three main observations that I want you to remember. The first observation is that in production, children show the adult pattern in SER and STAR. And this has been tested in, this has been seen in spontaneous elicitation, in picture descriptions. So they use STAR in sentences like, the girl is quiet, to mean that she's quiet now at utterance time. And they use STAR to say that quiet is a property, is a personality trait. So that's the introduction. The second observation relates to comprehension. In comprehension, what has been observed is that actually children have difficulties with vocabulary use. And some studies have shown that children, in fact, use the reverse pattern than adults. But some other studies have shown that children behave like adults when the temporary and permanent properties of the predications are made salient in the context. And I'll give you an example now. So for example, if the child is presented with these two giraffes, so this is the same giraffe, one is standing on a table, the other one is not. The child is asked, so in this case, the child says that a sentence such as the giraffe is tall to describe the giraffe standing on the table is acceptable. Whereas they would say that they would use SER, they would say that an acceptable sentence for the one on the left would be a sentence with SER, which is the same, which is what adults do as well. Nevertheless, some studies have noticed that youngest children, so between 3 and 7 years old, they seem to have some difficulty making use of these contextual cues to use STAR, to use each of the copulas. Okay, so these are the three findings that I wanted you to remember from production and comprehension. And now I'm going to move on to the hypothesis of the study. So, so we expect that Venezuelan children will show the adult-like pattern once they're able to make use of the contextual information to satisfy STAR's presupposition. Okay, that's the hypothesis. And now I'm gonna, Aveledo is gonna take over and present the experimental data.
Okay, thank you. So in order to analyze this hypothesis, we have done two tasks. We have done two studies. One is a copular sentence choice and the other one a copular sentence repetition choice. I'm going to talk about that later. So for the first study, the copular sentence choice, the prediction was the children will show contextual modulation in a STAR use if they can construe the alternative to satisfy a STAR's presupposition from the contextual information. So for this, this is a study in progress. So far we have analyzed adult population and children population, and for adults 20 speakers and for children 42, and we have divided them in these three age groups, as you can see there. For the task, we created a total of 12 copular sentence pairs with either SER or STAR, and of course in Venezuelan Spanish, and the sentence pairs consist of adjectival and nominal predicates. You can see two types of examples. I'm going to read it quickly, just in English. I saw her yesterday in the cinema. She, SER or STAR, is slim and pretty. The other example, he told me he is chef in a restaurant in the North Zone. The sentences will show a preference for SER in isolation, and each sentence was preceded by a context sentence. And I'm going to talk about this context, which were crucial in the task. So we created two types of context. One is a star favoring context, because it provides the alternative to satisfy the star presupposition, and the other one is a neutral context. A neutral context, okay? I won't give you the example, we can see them later if you want, but let me show you how was done the test. Okay, the task was designed in PowerPoint, and each context was presented with two pictures, as you see them here, and the researcher will read the context, and in a second slide, two birds figures will appear, and each will produce a sentence, one with ser and another one with a star. Let me show you. So here they will say, one day David broke his motorcycle and he had to fix it. Then,
David me dijo que está de mecánico en el taller de su papá.
so with a star, and the second one.
David me dijo que es mecánico en el taller de su papá.
So the instruction to the child or to the adult was, you are going to tell me which bird you think said it better. The one that said it as you would. Okay, so the results so far show for the adult data, they replicate the finding observed in previous work in Venezuelan Spanish. So we found contextual modulation in copula choice. So you can see here that in star supporting context, adults prefer star over ser, while in neutral context they prefer ser over star. With children, we didn't find the copular modulation, but when we analyzed the production of star, the selection of sentences with a star, we found that only in the oldest group, kids, 12-year-old kids, were the one that started to use more a star than ser sentences. Okay, this is in comprehension. So our task had a repetition, what we think is a production task. What do we think now? What this is? Okay, so the prediction was children will show contextual modulation for star in production if they can construct the alternative to satisfy the star presupposition from the contextual information. So the same kids, once they choose the bird that said the sentence as they would say it, then we ask them, do you remember what exactly the bird that you chose said? So could you repeat what the bird said? And then they repeated the sentence, okay? And here, interestingly, well, we found significant results. First, for adults, again, it shows the same pattern than in comprehension. So in supporting context, more selection of the star, and more selections of ser, in the repetition task, okay, we're in production now, so this is repetition. For kids, see, we observe an overall main effect of context. So here in supporting context, they repeated sentences with a star, even though in the comprehension task they were selecting maybe a bird that said ser instead of a star. Additionally, we found a higher use of a star in children, the youngest group, in comparison to the other groups. So, our summary and conclusions. So, children perform differently in comprehension and production task. Copular sentence choice in our comprehension task, they use the star The use of star increased only in the oldest children. Regarding production, there was an overall main effect of contextual modulation. And we suggest that children fail, or they are failing to construct alternative from the context needed to satisfy a star presupposition due to limited cognitive resources to identify this alternative in the context. In production, on the other hand, children are able to construct that alternative using contextual information. So the contrasted alternative are created by the same child from the experience. So, thank you.